Aho to ye travellers, cometh young, cometh old. 'Tis adventure we seek for the meek and the bold. A knight and a wizard who drink smashes sour have a magic crusade for you this questing hour.
Travelers!
Hello, travellers! Who goes there?
Funny seeing you here.
Hark! I see adventurers on the horizon!
Boy. Welcome, travelers, to the
Welcome
questing
back.
hour.
It is Monday. How you doing, Ari?
I'm doing great. I'm doing
Good.
okay.
Yeah.
A little stressful out here, but we're getting through it.
Yeah, I feel that. It's been a weird week. It's definitely a weird week.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. I've been taking this weekend to just reset. I was like, I'm not hanging out with anyone. I'm not talking to nobody.
I'm not
just
doing
gonna
nothing.
Do my own thing for 1 second.
1 minute.
Yeah, just let me have a little bit of peace so I can reset my life.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, since Ori moved away to go pursue her own adventures, I don't have a lot of people here that I hang out with in person. And so it's very easy for me to just sit in my house. So sometimes I literally have to force myself to get out of the house. I'm like, all right, go for a walk, go step outside for 2 seconds. Because when I'm not working, all I want to do is lay in bed.
Right. Yeah.
But I got stuff to do.
Yeah, I know. And you feel much better once you're not just bed rotting. Which I hate to say because I love to be in my bed.
I love to bed rot. Literally.
I know, it's addicting. It really is. And you just gotta fight your way out of it.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's definitely been a weird week. It feels a bit chaotic. And just taking it one day at a time.
Yeah, one day at a time.
That's all you can do.
That's all we can do. We'll make it to the next one.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, what are we talking about this week?
This week, we got, of course, a new guest for y'all. We're not going to tell you who, but we do have a good guest for y'all. And today, we're going to continue with our medieval figures.
Oh, yeah.
A very, very famous, well-known, reimagined hundreds of times figure, Robin Hood.
Yes. He's one of my favorite characters of all time. I
Truly
love him. And I heard that he's going to be at the Harriman Tennessee Ren Fair this year. Yeah.
What?
I know!
That's going to be so fun.
I know, whoa, I get to meet Robin Hood.
Yes!
I'm going to be giggling and blushing and kicking my feet.
Hi, Sir Robin Hood.
You're so brave!
That's hilarious.
I can't
I
wait.
absolutely love that. I like that we have Robin Hood because I feel like we've had fictional characters before that we've talked about, but they've kind of felt almost more real.
Yeah.
And I know that we'll talk about this a bit later, but my first idea of Robin Hood is literally impossible. The fox. It is a fox, man. And all the characters are animals.
Yeah.
And it's just a cartoon movie in my brain. I didn't know it was a story, a real story.
And ancient too, an old
it's
story.
Really old.
Yeah, and I just knew it as a little kid as a fox. And the little chicken running around, and the evil snake.
Yeah, and Little John's a big bear.
And Little John's a big bear, and the rooster plays the guitar. Yeah.
Oh my god, the rooster!
The rooster. Yeah.
He's the best.
He is. I love him.
He's the narrator, and he sings.
Yeah, it's so cute.
Iconic.
I know, it's so good.
It's so good. Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, because we've talked about knights, right? Who were real people. Knights were real people. We've talked about, specifically, we talked about Lancelot, but we've talked about knights. We've talked about Joan of Arc already, and we've talked about Beowulf, which was a story, but about, real people fighting beasts. So, I don't know. This just feels different to me.
It does feel different.
It feels more whimsy.
Yeah, it's a sweeter story, because I feel like the other ones are death, violence, madness.
Yeah.
And Robin Hood is really just a nice guy does nice things with his friends and helps people out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, there's definitely a lot going on. This also feels very more like, instead of fighting like mythical magical creatures or things like that, it's very much like fighting the government or like people versus power. And that's a very realistic feeling.
Yeah, and I feel like that's part of the reason why it's lasted so long and being reiterated multiple times, because we can relate to that today. They can relate to that 50 years ago, 100 years ago, 600 years ago when it was written.
We all just hated government for the entirety of history.
Yeah, I mean, all the stories about, classes being pitted against each other, people with money not helping out people without money, the government looking out for their own interests and not the interests of the people it governs.
Wow.
These are all stories that we can relate to.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and just seeing Robin Hood as like kind of like a role model, or like what is it called? Like a fable, like a moral story of someone that you should look up to. Like, oh, you should be this person when you're facing these problems in your society. I think it's really nice. Oh, I love Robin Hood. His silly little green hat.
And his silly little hat with his little bow and arrow.
Oh, I love him. And his
little foxtail.
And his little foxtail.
Yeah, I feel like Robin Hood definitely became like a figure for just, fighting injustices and helping the poor, and even being romantic. From becoming a figurehead of like fighting injustice and helping the poor, he's also kind of romantic. And I think that's what has probably helped its timelessness, because you could injustices could literally be anything.
Yeah.
Batman fights the entirety of Gotham essentially.
Right.
And he is justice. So who are we So who are we to say what that he's wrong?
Right.
But I think that's what helps with his timelessness, is that these are such like basic fundamental problems for society and the way that people live and need kind of help living.
Yeah.
And he does that not only just by fighting off, the government and stealing from the rich and giving to the poor, but he does it sweetly. He's a ladies' man. He does it nicely. Yeah. He's romantic.
He's sweet. He's a lover boy.
He's a lover boy. He's a lover, not a fighter.
I think that's another thing that kind of separates him from the other people we've talked about. Like, Beowulf was a great fighter. Like, he never lost. Lancelot was great. He was a ladies' man. But all of these people were great. And Robin Hood is just a guy, but he's good. Like, he doesn't need to be, like, fighting off demons and monsters and going against, like, 10 billion witches or whatever. Yeah. He just is standing up for what's right and protecting the people that he loves. And I think that's what makes us all great in the end.
Yeah, I think similarly to how you were saying that, like, Beowulf's greatest flaw is that he was ultimately human in the end. I think that is not Robin Hood's flaw in this.
Oh, yeah. If anything, that's like his strength.
If anything, that's his greatest attribute is that he's human and he can connect with these poor people and help them.
Yeah.
He's not some crazy strong perfect knight, traveling across oceans to fight a beast and his mom.
Yeah.
He's just a man in his little green hood. Steal it from the rich and give it to the poor.
What a guy! What a guy! I love him.
So Robin Hood obviously is kind of like a vigilante. Obviously.
Yeah, that's a good way to describe it.
In the most basic terms, he's someone who's kind of, anti-government, anti-rich. Not entirely anti-government.
That is true. That's true.
But he's all for helping the oppressed and people who can't stand up for themselves. Whether it's for the right reasons or not, we can discuss later on.
Yeah.
But he's first mentioned in the 13th and 14th centuries. I was actually, when I was looking that up, because I was wondering how after I saw that, after you put it in the
Yeah.
slide, I was looking up some stuff and they were saying that there might be like we don't even know if Robin Hood was ever a real man or not because
Ooh.
the story goes back so far.
Yeah.
And because it is so believable, like
Mhm.
Robin Hood could have been a real person.
Yeah.
And I just like thinking about that, like, wow. And the story's been changed and turned and looked at from so many different viewpoints where it's like, some people are like, what even is the real story anymore?
Right.
But even the story is so old that like there would be nothing but the real Robin Hood if there is one before it. So Robin Hood
That's
could have been a real
interesting.
person.
And the places that are mentioned in a lot of the stories, they're like real places.
Are real
Like
places.
Sherwood Forest, Nottinghamshire.
Nottingham? Yep.
Yeah, it's their actual flag that they still have today has a picture of Robin Hood on it.
Oh my gosh,
I think
that's
it's
so cool.
so cool, yeah. So like, even if he wasn't real, he's obviously shaped this entire place. This entire
absolutely.
location is because
Well,
where Robin Hood lives.
I was getting confused because when I was trying to look it up, it was just basically
Mm-hmm.
telling me like the history of how the story of Robin Hood has changed.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, well, I guess Robin Hood's not a real person. But when I was looking it up, I was like, well, we don't know if Robin Hood. Who's to say?
Interesting.
But yeah, it is such a great tale that it's obviously shaped nations and it shaped people's lives, and
Yeah.
it's one of the greatest known English folklores.
Yeah, it really is. And some of the characters that have been mentioned are like the very first stories. They've been adapted into even the stories that we have today. And they've kind of like shifted and changed in different ways, but they've been like the same people throughout those stories. So that's how they've been able to connect all the Robin Hood tales kind of together through history.
Oh, because they like catch the other
They're like,
characters.
oh, I know that
like,
name.
Oh.
Yeah.
So it's in the same universe.
Yeah, same universe, same world. Yeah. So like Maid Marian has been there for a long time, who is like his lady love, the lady he does all his beautiful quests for. Friar Tuck, which is like the church guy who in some stories is good and he like helps him out. Some stories he's not so good. And so he has to like, hey, I'm taking money from the church because you're robbing these people blind.
Oh my god.
And then King Richard, who is the king, and then Prince John, who is the evil prince. Those are kind of like the characters that have stuck through. Right? I don't know if Little John is in any of the stories but the Disney movie.
So when I was looking it up, he is in some of the tales because his name is Little John in the story.
Yeah,
actually.
Yeah.
I don't know how little or big he is,
Right.
according to the story.
Yeah.
But he actually ends up being a part of his band of merry men.
Yeah.
But he also gets offered, I think, a position with the guy, the policeman guy. What the hell?
Oh, the sheriff of Nottingham.
The sheriff.
Yeah,
I couldn't remember the word sheriff.
That guy.
That guy, you know? He oh my god, that really confused me. He ends up working for him and making money, and he's like, actually, I don't like doing that, and takes the sheriff's money and goes back to Robin Hood.
Yeah.
And Robin Hood's like, Little John, we don't take from people who haven't wronged us. And Little John's like, well,
but he's a cop.
Yeah, but he's a cop.
Yeah.
Like, so he is in some of the tales, like kind of his right hand man, and in some of the tales, he actually ends up dying in Little John's arms.
Oh no!
Yeah.
That is so sweet.
Yeah.
That's devastating, actually.
And one of the renditions, I guess. I don't know if that's
Dang.
all of them.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Poor guy.
Poor guy.
But yeah, that's interesting because I didn't hear anything about Little John, except I knew that he was that adorable bear in the movie.
I literally Little John and Robin Hood walking through the forest.
Yeah, in the little
like
forest.
That's all I can hear in my head.
I know.
His story.
What is his story?
I was gonna try to map out like the whole switch from like the original tale and then what
It's a
happened.
lot,
It's just
yeah.
it's a lot, guys. It's way too much for me to even try to explain to you. But if you actually want to know the chronological kind of happenings of how the story has changed and moved throughout the years, I found that on history.com for you guys if you'd like to look at that.
Nice.
But this is the story that I saw, which was like The Merry Adventures of Robin Hood. And this is the one that I saw with Lil Jon. And basically, Robin Hood is running from the sheriff of Nottingham. He did some things. He stole some things and was, he was on his way to, I just remembered. He was on his way to a archery
contest, yeah.
Archery contest. He was on his way to an archery contest and he accidentally killed a man.
Oh!
He accidentally killed a man and he had to run from the sheriff and he ran into the Sherwood Forest to escape, basically. And he stayed there for a long time, kind of just like doing whatever, living in the Sherwood Forest in solitude, doing whatever Robin Hood does. And slowly over time, more people came into the forest and was like, hey, Robin Hood, I want to join you and we can hang out in the forest together. And so they started building like this band of men, basically. Yeah. And Robin Hood was like, you know what we should do? We should vow to do good and help oppressed people by using our skills to steal from the rich and give to the poor.
Iconic.
And everyone was like, yeah.
Let's do it.
And then basically everything after that is a series of a bunch of adventures, basically, where they go out and do that, basically. They help undo wrongdoings, they steal from the rich, they give to the poor, they save people, they try to get people married who aren't who are meant to be together in love, who were like destined like for other people, but like they loved each other. And things like that. And the more things that they did, the more people joined like their band of merry men, essentially. And they all lived in the Sherwood Forest. They all did all these things. And then this is where I get confused. Because I'm so confused of the succession between the kings and stuff. Because I'm like, I don't know who's in charge. So there was a queen. And while he was on the run, basically, the king's like, hey, I don't like that Robin Hood's on the run. Let's do something. And the queen's like, I don't think we should do anything. And I think the queen ends up dying at some point and the king is in charge. He's fine with Robin Hood, I think. And then another king dies, according to the story that I was looking at. And this is when he sends the sheriff off to Robin Hood to kill him. Because he's like, he should not be in the forest. And Robin Hood ends up killing the sheriff. But he becomes very ill. And Lil Jon takes him out into the woods to shoot an arrow for one last time. And Robin Hood shoots his arrow, and he dies in Lil Jon's arms.
Oh my god. That is so sad.
That is the story that I read.
That is devastating. I'm gonna cry, actually.
That's so sad. I was like, I don't even know, but like, I'm just thinking of like the big bear carrying the tiny fox. Fox, like, go ahead, Robin, shoot your arrow, and it like falls flat because he's not strong enough, and he dies.
That's so sad. Oh. Poor baby.
But
that is devastating.
That is the story that I know. What is your story? You know.
Well, there are like a billion Robin Hood iterations all
I don't know
throughout
which
history.
one I'm reading.
Yeah, there's musicals, there's movies, there's books, there's cartoons, there's plays, there's like folklore, fables, everything. Literally any kind of meeting you can imagine, Robin Hood is there.
Literally.
Robin Hood is there in some version. So I have some pictures. This is the 2018 movie Robin Hood with Taron Egerton, who is in the Elton John movie. He played Robin Hood, and I forgot about that movie. I forgot it even existed, but I think he was pretty good. And then, obviously, Our Beautiful Fox, which is like the best movie ever. I watched that like that was my on repeat movie.
I think I used to have that on like VCR, like the tape.
Yeah, that was mine. It was addictive.
So good.
It was so beautiful. And even today, like the animation is just it's different.
Classic.
It's so
It's
good. Yeah, it's
classic.
beautiful to look at. The one in the middle here is Robin Hood from the ABC show Once Upon a Time, which had a show called On Me when I was in middle school. It was the
No,
show.
because for real, it was so
It was
good.
the show.
And then
Yeah.
when they introduced Peter Pan, I was like, oh my god,
Yeah.
best
And then
thing
it was like
ever.
it got good. And then they started putting people
And
like
then it got
Elsa and
bad.
Anna in there and it got bad. And I was like,
It
okay, I'm
got
done.
real bad.
But when it was good, it was good. If I watched it today, I would probably not agree, but I like to think it was great. And then Sebastian Stan as the Mad Hatter. Do you remember that? Changed my life. Yeah.
I literally forgot
Changed
about
my
that.
life. Yeah, it was so good.
Too good.
And then we have Russell Crowe as like, oh, I'm dark, gritty, angry Robin Hood,
I'm
which is like
angsty Robin
which is
Hood.
like Russell Crowe in all of his movies. It's just Russell Crowe being Russell Crowe again, which, you know, if that's your thing, I'm not gonna complain. I don't like Russell Crowe. Not for me.
Yeah.
And then
Not for me.
It's not for me. Leave him to whatever other movies that boys watch. Not for me. Although I will see the new Gladiator, because that looks really good. And then the last one, of course, is from Shrek. That's Robin Hood and his merry
Oh
men.
yeah.
They're portrayed as like idiots, pretty much.
Yeah,
They
like
are
I
pretty
mean,
dumb.
they're definitely, and the worst part is too is like they're definitely portrayed as not only idiots but like
Mhm.
not good people either. They like try to jump her in the forest.
Yeah, like, they're not good
And
guys.
I think at some point they're like, "Oh, let's save you," and she's like, "No, I'm fine, really."
And they're like,
It's- we'll save you. Don't worry.
Yeah, it's so weird. That is not my Robin Hood. Not him.
So goofy.
So funny.
Yeah, I was thinking about that before. I was like, oh my god, that really is Robin and his merry men in Shrek.
Yeah. It's Shrek. Yeah.
It's Shrek.
So funny. Which is funny because also Lancelot was in Shrek. In a completely different way.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Wait. Oh my
It's
god.
funny.
There
Yeah,
are
they-
so many stories.
They're picking these like
inside of
real
Shrek.
historical characters and just like
Just
one-off bits.
slandering them.
Just throwing these guys in the mud for a joke. Actually, good on you, Shrek. That's hilarious.
No, Shrek is top tier.
That's great.
For sure. Shrek is medieval culture.
It literally is. I was actually talking to some friends about the Renaissance fair that's coming up, and they were like, "So could I like dress as Shrek?" And I was like, "Actually, yes. That's actually pretty historically accurate."
I was gonna say, I think we should do a whole episode on just Shrek.
I'd be down. I'd be down.
And the historical accuracy,
Yeah,
and like all
like,
the characters
What is
and
real-
bits
yeah.
in it.
Mhm.
I
That
think
would
that
be
would be
so great.
so good.
Yeah, that'd be amazing.
Absolutely.
It'll be so good. All right. Well, this next bit is talking a little bit about the politics that are involved in Robin Hood because it's a pretty political story in most of its iterations. Even the cartoon has like, you know, the king and the prince and the sheriff, and
Yeah.
we're fighting against them, and they're not good. So one thing that I thought was interesting is that Robin Hood is pretty anti-establishment, but he's always loyal to King Richard, which is like pro-monarchy. Even though he is against Prince John, he's
Yeah.
against the sheriff, he's against pretty much any other form of government. He like breaks people out of jail all the time. But he's always like, I'm doing it all for my king, King Richard. I'm like, what? Why? Why is that?
I remember seeing something because that really is interesting because I
Mhm.
think there's a thing in here where it talks about how basically King Richard kind of just like left him. They were like, okay, just like respected him essentially.
Yeah.
And what he did. So there's a scene in this rendition of the story
Mhm.
where King Richard and his men go in search of Robin Hood, but they're dressed up as friars, so they blend in
Yeah.
some more.
Mhm.
And when they finally meet Robin in the forest, King Richard is like, "Hey, I want you to serve in my court and be a part of my men if you
Mhm.
wanna." And they kind of accept that for a time being. But
Yeah.
then King Richard dies, so Robin Hood returns back to the forest.
Mhm.
And so I wonder if it's like a respect level almost, not even because he's like
Yeah.
a king, but because as a person, he saw Robin Hood for who he was and what his skills were.
Yeah, I think so. And then Prince John, like his whole thing is that he's trying to steal the monarchy from King Richard. Because he's
Mm-hmm.
like second in line to the throne, so he's like, if I kill King Richard, then I can be the king. And so
Yeah.
obviously, like, I wouldn't respect him either. So that's probably like Robin Hood is thinking King Richard is like a good king. He's a good guy, so I'm gonna respect him and follow all the things he wants for England.
Mhm.
And Prince John is the opposite, so I'm obviously not gonna
Yeah.
do that.
It's
And the
like, at
sheriff's
least
on his
this was
side.
a decent
Yeah.
monarch, but
Yeah.
the sheriff is with this shitty prince who doesn't deserve anything he has.
Yeah,
So,
so I'm obviously gonna rob those guys.
yeah, exactly.
Obviously robbing those guys. Another thing is that in a lot of his stories, he's very against the church in general. Especially
I,
if they're like taking money from people that they shouldn't be,
yeah.
and like imposing themselves onto the government. Robin Hood is always like, stop.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I was like that connects in like going back to the Summoner's Tale.
Yeah,
where
yeah.
it talks about freaking
The friar,
the friar just like
Mhm.
begging for money for this family, and they're like, we've already given you so much money.
Yeah.
And he's like, give me more money though.
More. Yeah.
It's like, but what do you like? That is a perfect example of establishment, whether it's for the right reasons or not,
Yeah.
taking money from oppressed people, from lower class people, from people who need their money.
Right? Really, at the end of the day, Robin Hood was just like, if it's not for the people, if it's not for the people of England, it's not for me.
It's not for me.
Yeah. Which
He's like, I don't care
all
what your beliefs
government
are,
officials
what you
should be
do.
that way. Yeah. That's what all government
Absolutely.
officials should be like, but I guess we have to deal with Robin Hood. Guess that's why vigilantes exist.
Well, yes. But this also brings in a good point of like, because obviously there's some sort of separation between church and state, but in a lot of ways, church and state are very similar to each other.
Yeah.
And even in a lot of ways, they probably cross over when they shouldn't.
Yep. Yeah.
But I think at the core of people, a lot of people value this idea of separation between church and state. Yeah. I was watching not to get a little sidetracked, but I'm gonna.
Do it.
Because I was watching, I have a point, I swear. I was watching an episode of Law and Order SVU.
Mm-hmm.
And that has a lot of triggering things, so I'm going to try my best not to mention any trigger words. But something had happened, and the main character, the lady cop, was basically trying to find someone to arrest. And a woman who made peace with her situation was not revealing the person's name, even though she knew who it was. And he had done it to other women.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and so the cops found out that he was a part of the church group that she had went to, and they kept a registry of all of the people who went there.
Yeah.
So they were like, hey, we need to see this. If you can give this to us, we're just going to find his name. That would be great. Mm-hmm. And the guy was like, I can't. He was like, this is a sanctuary for all people, and if I do that, that's going to cross a boundary of sanctuary. So she was like, you can either give it to me now, or I will get a warrant, and I will come in here. And he was like, if you get a warrant and come back, I will not be alone. And they leave to get the warrant, and they come back, and the entire church is filled with people staring at them. And they're walking through, and they're like, please don't do this. Please just come sit with us and pray. And they walk through, they get into the office, and there's a woman like holding the names. And she's like, give me this. And a woman in the office is like, we value the separation of church and state. Please don't do this. And she's like, I'm doing this because he did something to 3 women, and she won't reveal the name to us. This is the only way we can put him to justice. And so in this instance, I was like, this is crazy, because we have these people that value this separation of church and state, or religion, above all else.
Above what is objectively right.
Objectively, what is
literally justice. Yeah.
Literally and it was a very like clash of thought processes. Crazy. And I was like, this is wild. But I think that's like this idea of like justice and morals is very seen a lot in Robin Hood,
Mhm.
which is why I brought
yeah.
it up.
Yeah.
Because I was like, in other words, like she is essentially the authority, right? She would be the
Mhm.
sheriff, but she's going against something, for example, that Robin Hood would also probably be against, but he would also
Yeah.
be against the cops,
Right?
like taking
Mhm.
liberties against the people. So it's kind of like, you know, how far is too far? When is wrong and when is right? And what morals are better or higher than other? Like, who is to say justice? This is just me playing devil's advocate. But who's to say I'm trying not to be insensitive, but I'm trying to just objectively
Yeah,
speak.
yeah.
But who's to say, you know, justice for these three people is greater than the safety and sanctuary of everyone in a religion?
Right?
You
Especially
know?
like, because, I mean, like, the rules of the state and like the law completely butting heads with the rules of the church and their own personal laws. And when they coincide and like they conflict each other, who wins? Like, who goes above the other one?
Yeah, who's in charge?
And it's
Like,
really all up to whoever's going to make that decision and say this is what's right,
exactly. And I
regardless
think
of
that's
your
what
laws.
Robin Hood is.
And that's what Robin Hood is. He's like, at the end of the day, even if stealing is wrong, even if going against the like nobility is wrong, this is what's right for the people of England. So I'm gonna do it. Since obviously
Yeah.
none of you guys will.
Since you guys won't, I'll do it for you.
I wonder if Robin Hood, if democracy existed in that time, if Robin Hood would like run for office.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Like, do you think he
That's-
would want to like change the rules and like kind of make it helpful, or do you think he likes like being in the background, living in the forest,
he likes being in the background,
like being like a street level guy?
Well, that's
like
the thing is
friendly
that no
neighborhood
matter
Robin
what
Hood.
happened, he always returned to the forest.
Yeah.
And so I
Mhm.
think maybe at its core, like Robin Hood was just an average guy, and he was okay with being that.
Mhm.
He was like, you know what, I could make a difference for some people. If I know a wrong is happening, I'm gonna go fix it and
Yeah.
return back to my home in the forest. Like,
Yeah.
and they had basically their own society up in there. Like, they
Right.
were by themselves, left
Mhm.
alone, with all these like merry men, like living there
Mhm.
full time.
Right? It's kind of the dream. I wouldn't want to live in an office. Yeah.
Yeah, seriously. And so, like, I mean, yeah, I think that he would just remain in the background. I think it would be
Mhm.
like a V for Vendetta situation.
Yeah.
Like, where he just did things in the background of what he thought was right, and, you know, people were gonna look at him
Mhm.
good or bad depending on which side they were on.
I agree. I think it's good. You know, in Captain America: Civil War, so they have the Sokovia Accords, which basically
Yes.
says that the Avengers are government property and they can only help people if the government says so. I feel like that's kind of what it would be like if Robin Hood became part of the government in an attempt to fix it. He would be part of the establishment and like trying to fix it, but there'd be so many other people in his way that he really wouldn't be able to do what he needs to do.
Yeah.
So I think he would operate better as a free agent.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I think a perfect example of that is that we see in a lot of the like renditions of Superman,
Yeah.
that like the American government, because he lives in America, try to control him as like an American agent, or like get him to work for the government. And
Yeah.
Superman's like, I am the only Kryptonian on this planet. I have to save the whole planet, not just worry about America.
This is bigger than you.
This is bigger than you.
Mhm.
This is bigger than me.
Mhm.
You know, like, I am the only one alive. Obviously before he finds out about his cousin, but
Mhm.
like, you know, and he takes that upon himself to be like, this is what's right for all, as opposed to what you think is right for your country.
Yeah.
But there is a rendition of Superman where it's the opposite, because instead of landing in America, he lands in Russia.
Oh.
I'm pretty sure.
Oh, that's
I'm pretty
cool.
sure it's Russia, and he becomes like a super agent of Russia.
Dang.
And he's kind of like evil.
Yeah,
I don't know a lot about that
Yeah.
rendition of
That is
Superman,
very
but
interesting.
it's very like
Mhm.
180 complete opposite
Yeah.
mindset. So I imagine like that's I just like I imagine that's just what would happen. I feel like if
Mhm.
Robin Hood had become like an agent of society and like
Right.
worked for the monarchy or became a part of
Mhm.
government, because it's like you're not yourself anymore. You're not who you were at your core. You're
Mhm.
being controlled by somebody else.
Yeah.
And if you don't listen to what they say, you're at their whim, essentially, you know?
Right? Because there's always going to be rules that he would have to follow if he was a part of another
Have to do
organization.
it this way, have to
Yeah.
do it, you know, whatever.
Mhm. Whereas when he's by himself, there's no laws. There's just what he
I
thinks
mean,
is right.
we see
Mhm.
it in Civil War when they fight each
Yeah.
other. The moment they
Yeah.
disagree, they literally
Mhm.
fight themselves.
And then have them
So
go to
it's like,
jail because they broke the law.
exactly.
Yeah.
It's like, well, what the hell was that law? Like, what is that?
I didn't sign it. Yeah.
I didn't agree.
Yeah. I could talk about the Sokovia Accords for like years. That is like such an interesting concept to me. And I will fight hard for Team Cap. I will die for Team Cap.
Yeah, because didn't I remember when I saw
Mhm.
what's after Endgame? What's
Spider-Man?
the no not chronological after Avengers Endgame. What is the next Avengers movie?
Oh, that is the last one.
Is it?
Yeah. It's Infinity War than Endgame.
Oh, Infinity War then
Oh,
Endgame.
yeah.
No, you're so right. You are so right. I'm tripping. I always forget about Infinity War.
Yeah.
Even though we saw it in theaters and I cried.
Oh my god, it was so good.
I bawled my eyes out.
Yeah, that was
Anyways.
wow. Life-changing.
In the beginning of Endgame, when they get Cap back from space,
Yeah.
I remember like the first thing he does is go up to Cap and he's like, I told you, we should have put a shield around the Earth.
I'm like, Tony, you tried that, and it was Ultron.
What are you talking about?
Yeah,
That's an evil robot.
It didn't work. And it still did. Like, Clint and Scott were on house arrest when all of that went down. Because they broke the law. So crazy.
Yeah, that's like,
Mhm.
oh my gosh. Like those are good examples
Mhm.
of, you know, oh, that's so wild. I could talk about Marvel, I feel like, for a long time. There's an episode of What If where Ultron actually does like take
Oh my
over.
god, yeah, it's crazy.
And it's the wildest episode ever.
Yeah, Ultron is like the scariest villain to me. They should have
absolutely.
brought him back. They should bring him back. I love Ultron.
Oh,
He's so scary.
I wasn't gonna say that, but
okay, just do a little multiverse, like Ultron
Little
comes
multiverse
back for a little
action.
bit. Yeah.
yeah. Anyways,
Anyways,
back to Robin Hood. I think the point that we're trying to get across is like where there's always gonna be this separation of what is right and what is wrong, and what is moral and what is immoral. You know, these are things that are kind of philosophical conversations that are still occurring, like in classrooms, in everyday, in courtrooms and things like that, where it's like, you know, what is justice? How far is too far? What things should be protected above other things? And people have different beliefs of those in every variation.
yeah.
But I think Robin Hood always stick to his guns and his beliefs.
Yeah.
And I only say that because I have an example for you.
An example? Are you
So-
gonna share it now?
I am gonna share it with you.
Yay.
So on one of their little adventures, Little John and Robin Hood go together, and Little John, they're basically trying to get to one of the competitions from the Queen before the King kind of takes over.
Yeah.
And they try to go to this competition, but by now they're already living in the forest. They're vagabonds, they're thieves, according to the government.
Yeah.
Quote unquote. Sorry for Spotify. I keep making motions and not
quote,
telling you
unquote,
what's happening. Yeah, I'm like not telling you what's happening, but I'm doing stuff over here. So Little John dresses as a friar, and he ends up meeting up with other friars, and he taunts these friars on his travels and ends up stealing from them just even though they didn't necessarily
Just
do
'cause,
anything.
yeah.
Just cause. And while he's doing that, Robin Hood is on his own trading clothes with beggars so that he looks like a beggar when he enters the competition.
Mhm.
He ends up robbing 4 other beggars who are supposedly feigning, quote unquote, other ailments. So they're like pretending to be sick to get money, basically.
Oh.
Yeah. And so my question is,
Mhm.
right? Because some would say that he's still doing the robbing
Yeah.
of lesser people, essentially,
Yeah.
of other people, and thieving. But some would say that, you know, sometimes the action doesn't outweigh the good deeds.
Yeah.
Because essentially, how is he the good guy if he's
Right.
fighting fire with fire? You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. That is very interesting. Especially in that situation. Like, they were, like,
Just
doing
minding
something
their
wrong
business.
if they were lying about their illnesses, but they were still poor as hell. Like, they're still beggars.
Like, minded their business.
Yeah.
They were still beggars. They were still poor.
Mhm.
And he was stealing from them, you know, even if they
Mhm.
were feigning illness, he was still taking from them.
Yeah.
And Lil Jon, like, yes, they've stolen from friars, and we already know how they feel about friars.
Mhm.
But Lil Jon was taunting them. He
Yeah,
started
like,
it.
being rude. Yeah.
He started it,
Uh-huh.
being rude, coming at them, and then
Mhm.
ends up stealing from them before both him and Robin head to the archery competition.
Yeah.
And so it's like, it still kind of is in their status quo of stealing from people who are wrong in some way.
Yeah.
But who's to say that that makes Robin Hood right in this situation?
Right? Like,
It's
even
tough.
if he was following his own moral beliefs, he still hurt someone that shouldn't have been hurt in the
That
process.
shouldn't have been hurt in the process.
Yeah. That is hard.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just one of those things where it's like,
Mhm.
like going back to Marvel, for example, where Captain America said to Tony, like, hey, we tried it your way and it still didn't work. So don't blame me because it didn't work either way.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
it's not my fault if it doesn't work. You know what I mean? And so I think, you know, in Robin Hood's head, he's like, this makes sense for the greater good.
Yeah.
You know, like, this makes sense because maybe they won't beg anymore or pretend to be sick when they're not.
Right? Maybe he's like, I'm teaching them a lesson.
I'm teaching them a lesson.
Yeah. And
you
by
know?
using all their clothes that I stole from them, I'm gonna go win an archery competition and give that money to the
and
poor.
and then I'll be
So
able
it,
to
like,
steal
evens
from more rich
out.
people.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, and I think that brings into question, like, kind of how far is too far. We get a lot of sense of, you know, Robin Hood's good deeds versus the power that the government and people have, and the rich people have over all the other people that he's supposedly saving, right?
Yeah.
And we see this a lot today in, like, media, for example, where it's like, you know, are these really good deeds if it's still doing something, quote unquote, bad?
Yeah.
You know, like a prime example is Mr. Beast. There's always discourse around Mr. Beast.
Always.
Because his videos are like, oh, I helped 100 blind people see for the first time. And people are like, okay, but you're putting it on the internet, you're filming them, doing all, like, you know, some people say, like, if you film a good deed, is it really a good deed?
Yeah.
You know, and that's kind of what I feel from Robin Hood sometimes, because I'm like, this man just, like, boasts. He loves doing these things, but I'm like, is he doing them for the good of the people or because he feels good doing them? Like, it's for himself.
Yeah. Especially in this situation, like, is it even his place to teach those people a lesson?
Yeah.
Or be like, hey, Friar, stop doing that. Like,
especially after he had already gotten what he needed from the first beggar by, like, he traded clothes with him.
Like, did it
that
the right way.
Fine.
Yeah.
He did it the right way and then proceeded to.
And he's like, actually, no, I'm Robin Hood, so I gotta do as much as I can. I have to do the absolute most in this situation.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, you don't have to. Yeah.
Exactly. And so it's kind of just like, it's just so tough because it definitely is a good tale of just, you know, standing for what you believe in and sticking to your morals and take it from the rich and give it to the poor.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And like caring about, you know, the people overall as opposed to a governing body.
Yeah, for sure.
But it's tough. Like, would you say Robin Hood is a good role model overall?
I would say yes, overall. I feel like in most situations, it is okay. Take this with a grain of salt. In most situations, it is okay to break the rules if you're doing something right. I feel like in a lot of situations, the people who put the rules in place do not have your best interest in mind. And if you truly believe that, and if you believe that you would be helping more people, it is okay to break the rules. I think about, now, I've never done this, but wink, that was a wink for Spotify. But I think about when people shoplift from big businesses like Walmart or Target for things like diapers or like baby formula, things that people need to survive and they can't afford it. Is that the right thing to do? Because these businesses, like, they're not going to miss the money, but it's still like stealing, which is against the law.
Yeah, it's still, you know, based off of these made up laws that we made for control.
Yeah.
It still is.
Yeah. Or thinking about like the protests that have been happening on college campuses. Like some of them, most of them, all of them have been following all of the rules and procedures. But if they stay there like a second longer than the like university allows them to, cops are showing up and arresting all of these kids.
Yep.
And like
I've seen so many things about that.
They're speaking up for what's right. They're saying the right things, and they're still getting arrested for it because they're breaking the law. Is that good or bad? Like, would you consider these people good role models? And I would, personally.
Yeah. I think one of the biggest things is that, like, I think being true to yourself, whether you're a good or bad person, is the best thing. I wouldn't say that makes you a good or bad role model particularly, but like I don't know. I wouldn't say they're bad role models either. Yeah. And I think so many of these things are circumstantial also.
Right. Yeah.
Because like obviously this is a fake scenario, but like God forbid there was like a zombie apocalypse or something. None of these rules would apply.
No,
None of these morals and characters and ethics we set ourselves up for would apply in any capacity.
Yeah.
I mean, like if you watch like The Walking Dead, for like literally,
there's no laws.
There's no laws.
They're killing and eating people.
People are literally killing each other, and you would think that would be the one thing where you're like, let's not do that and create more zombies. Let's protect each other and fight for each other. But you know what happens? We're literally only human, and we're not great at it either.
It's easier to survive if I kill these people, so I'm going to do it.
It's easier to survive if I do it on my own and kill everybody else.
Like, and at the end of the day, if you're in medieval England and you're the poorest of the poor living on the streets, like, I would do what I have to do to survive too. If somebody robbed the government and gave me their money, I'd say,
Aladdin stealing bread and giving it to children.
He steals only what he can't afford, and that's everything.
Literally.
Yeah.
Like, and so, like, does that make Aladdin a bad guy? No. And I think one act like that, you know, which is circumstantial, does not make him a bad role model or a bad character. Yeah. He ended up giving his bread to the kids. He didn't even eat it.
Yeah, he's a good guy.
Like, I think doing what you have to do, this money, doing what he has to do for people who can't.
Yeah.
It gives it to those people.
Doing what you need to do to keep yourself and the people around you alive, I will never see that as a bad thing. I will always say, you did your best. You might not have done it the right way, but you did what you needed to do to survive. And that's enough.
Yeah, and I think the only reason I would say Robin Hood is a good role model too is that, of course, we see a lot of his adventures and him like stealing from the rich and giving to the poor, but his character outside of those adventures is still a good character. Like he carries that over. It carries over with him when he's not in his adventures.
Yeah.
Like the first scene that we get, for example, in the Disney's rendition of Robin Hood, where it's all the animals and he's a fox, is he's at like a rabbit's birthday party.
Yeah.
And it's the oldest rabbit's birthday party, and he gave the oldest rabbit a bow and arrow so he could learn to protect himself and fight and hunt and do what he needed to do. And he gave it to him for his birthday because he looked up to Robin Hood.
Yeah,
because they kept like Robin Hood. Yeah, it was a celebrity. Robin Hood literally gave them food, gave them money to live and stay in their house and pay. Because I think the sheriff in that one like goes around and like takes taxes from everybody, right?
Yeah, he was like taxing them and like taking a bunch for profit.
Yeah, and it was taking like a lot of it for profit himself, and then like upping it. And they were like, we can't even afford to pay you now.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I would say so. I would say Robin Hood. Robin Hood is a good role model, and I think that you answered this next question. This is all food for thought, y'all. We're just spitballing here. But like, I asked, like, is it okay to do the wrong things for the right reasons? And I think you kind of answered that with the protest was a perfect example of, you know, kind of doing the right thing, doing the wrong thing for the right reasons.
For the right reasons.
Because who's to say it's wrong? That's all perspective, really.
Yeah. Congressman John Lewis, who passed away a few years ago, I think, he marched with Martin Luther King. And in the civil rights movement, he was a congressman for many years. He had a book called Good Trouble. And it was about all of the people throughout history and his own life who broke the law and got arrested in the name of doing the right thing. Like,
wait, I want to read that.
MLK. It is so great.
Yeah, those are,
I mean, Joan of Arc, like, she fought as a woman because it was the right thing to do to save France.
And she
broke all
stayed
those
true
laws
to
and
herself.
she died for it. Yeah.
And she died for it. Even when they gave her a chance, she was like, okay, and then proceeded to still do it because it was who she was.
Yeah.
And died for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely think it is okay to do the quote unquote wrong thing for the right reasons.
Yeah. Like, if society is making people's lives miserable and making their lives harder, if the only way to make them better is to break the law, I think that is perfectly fine. Break those laws, man. Break those laws.
I mean, we don't condone getting in trouble. Within reason, guys. Please.
Everything
don't break the law.
Do it within reason. Yeah.
God, Maggie.
I'm not saying like, oh my God,
Maggie's
my
gonna
life would
start
be
a
so
war.
much my life would be so much easier if I weighed 100 in an 85 or something like that.
No, my life would be so much nicer if I, you know, drove recklessly.
Yeah.
Like under the influence.
I think
Definitely
society
not,
would be
guys.
better
Please
if I
don't.
committed credit card fraud.
Please don't.
Don't do
Like,
it, guys. That's not what we're saying.
Those are not
Stick up
the
for
right
what is
things.
right. Yeah, stick
Those
up
are
for
not
what is
the
right.
things.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
I just think my community would benefit if I robbed my rich friend.
Yeah, absolutely.
And who's to say they might? But don't rob your rich friends, guys. Just ask them for money.
Just ask them nicely instead.
Just say, please, can everybody please?
Please, I'm so poor.
Please help me, please.
Oh my gosh.
Okay. Oh, another question for you. I just came up with this one off the cuff. Since there's been so many reboots and iterations of Robin Hood throughout media, if they were to make a new movie or like a limited series or something about Robin Hood, who would you cast?
Okay, wait. I've been seeing all over TikTok, okay? I've been seeing all over TikTok a freaking what's it called? The like 80s AI dark fantasy videos. Have you seen those?
Yeah.
I'm obsessed with them.
It's so
I want
cool.
everything to be like 80s dark fantasy.
It's so
like
cool.
The way they're making these AI videos. And if you guys haven't seen them, look them up on TikTok because they're so like dark and scary, right? So picture a Robin Hood like dark, kind of scary almost.
Yeah.
And Timothy Chalamet is Robin Hood.
Ooh, I like it. I like it. Yeah, like a little like spooky, like Tim Burton-esque Robin Hood. I think that would be
Yes.
really good.
And
love
Florence
that.
Pugh can play Maid
Maid
Marian.
Marian. I think I think all of our fan cats are Timothy Chalamet and Florence Pugh. I just love them together.
That is so true. It really
so
is
true.
always
They're
Timothy
just great,
Chalamet.
and I love them. They're good.
I just think that she's so versatile.
No, she could literally do anything.
I
She
think
could be
if
Robin
it
Hood
was
if she
not like a dark fantasy, I could see
Mhm.
Tom Holland playing like a
I could do
kind of
that.
the Foxy, like the Disney's like
Yeah,
jokester
like
rendition.
more merry man.
More
Yeah.
Merry Man
Yeah,
type
being
vibes.
kind of
I
silly,
could see
goofy. I
Tom
like
Holland
that.
doing that.
That'd be good.
But I feel like just dark fantasy. Did you see Dune 2?
Yeah,
It's so good.
it is the perfect film.
I truly cinematically love the beauty that is Dune.
It's so
It is so
gorgeous. Yeah.
cinematically a masterpiece in every
Yeah.
way.
Mhm.
And the part that I'm thinking about is like when he's like all wrapped up in the stuff and he's like, I am Paul Muad'Dib Atreides.
Duke of Arrakis.
And I just like imagine him in the trees with the same wrappings, and he's like, I
Right?
am Robin Hood of the Merry Men.
He's like,
Yeah, literally.
Oh, that'd be so good. I can see it. I can see
I
it.
can see it. And
Yeah.
but it's gotta be all dark fantasy.
It's gotta be very moody. Yeah.
very moody.
Mm-hmm.
Like Kristen Stewart Snow White.
Yeah, it's gonna be like that. Like Kristen Stewart in anything.
We love you, Kristen Stewart.
We love you. We love you, Kristen Stewart. Personally, I would love to see Robert Pattinson as Robin Hood, Kristen Stewart as Maid Marian. Let's bring them back.
At first I was like, oh yeah, and then you said Kristen Stewart, and I was like, I don't know.
Wait.
Well, he's supposed to continue playing Batman, and I think he did pretty.
I just had an idea.
Yes.
Timothy Chalamet as Robin
Okay.
Hood. Robert Pattinson as the Sheriff of Nottingham.
Okay.
I'm cooking.
You're cooking something.
I would love to see him play just someone so skeevy.
We gotta put our full fan casting
Yeah.
on Instagram.
Oh my
like,
god, we
with
absolutely
the
have
pictures.
to. Yeah, yeah. There's a movie, All the Devil All the Time. It's like a kind of like a westerny movie with Tom Holland
Yes.
and Robert Pattinson plays like the worst man in the world. Like he is just truly evil and awful and sleazy and skeevy. And if he
I feel
channeled
so
that
bad
energy,
that man.
I know he
will
did it
forever
so
go
well.
down
I
as
was like,
Edward Cullen.
right? He's such
He's
a good
so
actor.
good.
Yeah, and I think if he channeled all that like sleazy, skeevy, up to no goodness
Yeah.
into like a Sheriff of Nottingham, and since they're like kind of the same age, it would be like a different, almost making them like character foils of each other.
Yes.
I think
that would be so
very cool.
good.
Mm-hmm. I like it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I can see that.
Mm-hmm.
I can't wait. Oh, we gotta think of somebody for the prince now.
Yeah, Prince John, King Richard, could be any old white man. Who cares?
Yeah, King Richard's fine.
Yeah.
Prince John. More
Prince John's gotta be
importantly.
good. And then Little John, we gotta find a funny Little John.
Oh my gosh, Little John's gotta be so good.
Yeah.
Oof.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh, well, if you guys
I
want
love
to
this
see
shit.
I know we are cooking over here.
We are
If
cooking.
you guys want to see our full fan casting, please check out our TikTok and Instagram.
Yes, do
We will
it.
be posting that immediately.
Now!
But that is all we got for Robin Hood.
Yeah.
It
Wait, we have one more thing to do.
of course. How could I forget?
How could we forget our
It's
thing that
not
we have to
forgetting.
do?
Don't worry.
We would never ever forget.
I would never forget.
Yeah. So what is it?
I knew you were gonna ask me.
So what is it? If you didn't forget.
I'm gonna do a little throwback to our old quests.
Ooh.
But obviously this one's a bit more focused. I want you guys to write your own tale of Robin Hood
Ooh.
in the form of a Canterbury Tale.
Oh, I like it. I like it. That'll be fun.
Your own little steal from the rich, give to the poor. If you don't want to write about Robin Hood, maybe do a little ladyhood.
Yeah.
You know,
Or like put yourself in his shoes and like what would you do?
do?
Yeah. Oh, I love that. And
Mm-hmm.
please share it with us. I want to hear it so bad.
And as a little Ari quest to go along and put us in the mindset of Robin Hood, I want you to find some way to pay it forward.
Oh, I love that. Ah, that's such a good one. And wear green while you do it. That's Maggie's quest.
Wear green! Yes, that's your Maggie quest.
And wear green to put yourself in the body of Robin Hood.
Yes, you are Robin Hood. Now
I am
go,
Robin Hood.
go and do it.
Go do good. Go do good. That's
so
good.
your nice simple quest is to write your own tale of Robin Hood in the form of a Canterbury Tale, or however perspective you want to do it. And your Ari quest and Maggie quest combined is to wear green and go pay it forward.
Go pay it forward. Be the Robin Hood in your
some way.
community. I love that. That's great.
Genius.
We're so smart.
We know what we're doing.
Okay, we have t-shirts that say certified yapper and t-shirts that say we're so smart.
Oh my god.
We're always saying that.
We are always saying that. Yeah. My uncle was like, Maggie's catchphrase is, "That's so good."
That is so good. It is.
Say that all the time.
Well, everything is so good.
He was like, I don't know what your catchphrase is because I think I just know you, so it's not the same. But
It's
coming
hard to
from someone
listen
who
for.
doesn't know Maggie, she always says, "That's so
That
good."
is so good. That's so good.
Well,
say
like
that all the
vigorously pointing at the screen.
That's good. Oh my god, I love it.
That's Maggie's catchphrase. We gotta make it into pins and stickers and
stickers, mugs. Yeah, we need everything.
everything.
I love it.
But that is your quest, travelers. And if you want to see our casting for our fan-made Robin Hood, then go check out our socials at Questing Our Podcast, Questing HR Podcast. We are available on all social media platforms, including now Threads from
Yes,
Instagram.
we are. So exciting. I forgot that one existed. Hey,
I did too until 2 days ago.
Yeah. Well, now we're on Threads. And if you do our quests, you want to keep up with how we do the quests, and you want to share stuff with us, see what's happening in the next week, so you can follow us and tag us and talk to us at #MyQuestingHour. And in the meantime, we'll be back Thursday with a super special guest.
With a new guest. Farewell, travelers.
So long!